Welcome to episode number 45 of Just Go Grind, a show that focuses on helping you launch and grow a business and navigate the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. I'm Justin Gordon, your host, and in this episode we have Serah Blackstone-Fredericks, who is the founder and CEO of Books in Harmony, which is a company that serves individuals and business owners focusing on strategizing a plan with their clients to track their finances, which is obviously an incredibly important part of business. And we discuss how Serah launched and grew this business, how she decided which clients to work with, how that's kind of evolved over time, how the team's been built, everything around this business. Such an important episode for founders, for anyone trying to start a business, knowing that the finances are so important. As always, the show notes are at justgogrind.com/podcast. And in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, you can support the show by leaving a rating and review and subscribing to the show there as well. And recently I began coaching, helping people launch and grow businesses, helping people launch podcasts, providing some insights into this whole business world or podcasting at justgogrind.com/coaching. So go ahead and check that out. Without further ado, here is Serah Blackstone-Fredericks from booksinharmony.com. Serah, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thank you for having me, Justin. Nice to finally be on the show.
Yes, excited to have you on here and talk about many things that I know very little about, admittedly. So it's going to be good. And with your business, Books in Harmony, how did this get started from like the way beginning? What were some of the first things you did to get started?
Yeah. So for me, I think I was lucky because since I had been a bookkeeper and Books in Harmony is a bookkeeping firm that we do bookkeeping, I had already had like an inside view of businesses and I had been working for a lot of businesses. So I decided to just reach out to some business owners and friends who I trusted and ask them questions. Just, what did you do? What about pricing? How do you find clients? Whatever I thought of, I asked. And I asked a lot of questions and I just saturated the people that I trusted and I knew that their advice would be well thought and it would be solid. So from there, I just was like, okay, I'm going to just start out. I've been doing bookkeeping. I know I want to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I have a different model and, the model is really just looking out for the client's best interests, but not working on site and making sure that they feel taken care of. So that's just kind of what I went off of. And it was like, okay, let's just take this risk and try it and see where it goes. And it's worked out well.
That's awesome. And one of the things I always wondered though is with timing. So like, how did you get to the point where, okay, yeah, now I'm going to do this versus, 6 months earlier or a year earlier, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always curious about that. So how did you get to that point?
Sure. Yeah. Timing, that's interesting. So I initially started bookkeeping around 9 years ago and I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was really dull. And I was like, there's no way, I can do this. And I just never stopped. So I would do other jobs. I was a teacher. I had, art classes. I had like apparel design companies, but I would never really stop doing the bookkeeping. It was always happening for me or for another client. There was just always a client in the background. And it was really a confidence factor for me and making sure that I felt capable to handle somebody's finances on my own.
Yeah.
So I'd gone from being an office assistant to an office manager, and I knew I was good at bookkeeping, but it was just a confidence factor. So it took me a good 8 years to build up that confidence factor and realized I was just so miserable working for people and getting a check and having that predictability of going here on Monday and going here on Tuesdays. I had this flexibility, but the predictability was dull for me.
Yeah.
I really needed to just like go out and do things on my own and figure them out. So from there, it was December of 2017. And I was like, I'm just done. I'm going to just drop everybody that I'm working for under somebody else's business and, just leave that behind and just start out. And it was just being willing, the willingness to take a risk.
Yeah.
and it paid out, thankfully.
Yes, thankfully. That's awesome. And it's definitely a risk, but in the end,
Yes.
it seems to have worked out well for you. And, I want to go a little bit deeper on some of those questions and the approaches you took to learn in the beginning before you kind of, jumped in, or as you were, I guess, early on in the business. Like, were you just meeting people for coffee, phone calls? Like, do you have like a set questions you're asking them? I want to go deeper on that because I know people typically don't do enough research beforehand, it seems like, starting businesses. So
Oh,
I'm curious
yeah.
on how you approach that.
Definitely. So I'm a lifelong learner and I love to read and I love to learn about people's processes. And part of the thing that I love the most about bookkeeping is being able to see the behind the scenes. I'm really curious about what happens behind the
Yeah.
scenes. So for me, education was a top priority. So I spent a whole month and a half just every day reading, every day on websites, really finding out a good template that I could use and almost duplicate for my business by just seeing, from people's websites, from their pricing, what worked, what didn't work, and kind of implementing that in my business and seeing what I liked. As far as finding clients, I was constantly getting referrals from the fact that I was a really efficient bookkeeper. And so I knew referrals were strong because that's pretty much a guarantee that you've been vetted and that person hopefully has been vetted and you're a good fit. So I knew I wanted to work with referrals only for at least the first
Okay.
year. And so I visited BNI. Somebody had mentioned BNI, which is Business Networking
Yeah.
International. And it worked really well because it helps you refine your elevator pitch. And if you don't have one, you figure it out fast that you need one. And you need to be able to sell, in 30 seconds what you do, how you do it, and how you do it differently,
Yeah.
right? That's so important. So BNI really helped me. And I was like, okay, the return of investment, it's really pricey, but if I get, 2 clients and I learn how to effectively communicate what I do, that will be sufficient for me. And it really worked well, just learning how to network. And with BNI, they request that you like go meet individuals and talk about your business. So I would go to these coffees or lunches and talk about what I did. So inadvertently, I became good at it because I had to.
And
Yeah.
with those meetings, like how many meetings were you going to? Like, was it weekly? Was it a monthly thing, or how often?
Oh, I was meeting with probably 15 to 20 people a
Whoa.
month. I was aggressively networking because I had around 4 clients when I started. I had like no work. I found these clients off Craigslist and I was like, I need business. I'm a single parent. I'm like, I have to like
Yes.
provide. So it had to be figured out rapidly. And that was just networking, going on Chamber of Commerce websites and going to mixers and really meeting people where you
Yeah.
like them and they like you, because that's just the easiest person to work with. If you get along on a basic human level, then it's much easier to refer to one another. And yeah, so I networked aggressively for about 6 months. And I think that, attributes to the way that the business grew
Yeah.
quickly.
Meeting
And
tons of people.
yeah, now we have 45
Jeez.
clients.
So you started, obviously had a few clients to begin with. That you said 4 or 5 before you kind of went aggressively networking?
Correct. Yeah. And so we had, 4 to 5 beginning of last year. And then by June, I had
Goodness.
20. So I networked and it was like, for me, it's like, there's no way but
Yeah.
up. If you're at the bottom, there's no way but up. And it's like, how do I want to get from point A to point B? There's many ways to get there. And for me, networking is actually extremely exhausting. I'm pretty ambivert, but I lean towards more introversion. And it's a lot, but it's like, if you are meeting with people and they're inspirational and they're teaching you about things that have worked for them, that really works. It
Yeah.
works well to figure yourself out in the
Yeah. And that's what I'm
process.
doing with the podcast and all these calls. And it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And even like, because of how many, like for instance, this week it's 5 interviews and probably 5 to 8 calls this week. And then a networking event on top of that. And it's like, it, in theory, is like tiring, but also energizing because you do talk to these people who are doing such cool things and you get ideas and you get inspiration.
Yeah.
And one thing I also had to mention, you said you got your first client through Craigslist. In 2012, I got my
Yes.
first personal training client through Craigslist. And it was in the summer of like going into senior year of college or something like that. And I got them for the whole
Yeah.
summer back home in Milwaukee, even though I was at school at a different city. And they knew I was just going to be there for
Yeah.
3 months, and they still want to work with a first time trainer. So it's amazing. You just never know where you can
Yeah.
find people.
Yeah. Craigslist is great. And I think it's great because I find that Craigslist can be for people who are more price sensitive. So it's a good place to dip your toes and kind of like see, who works for you, who doesn't work for you. And then from there, you can really figure out like what your model is. Like, maybe you want to cater to people who are price sensitive. Maybe you don't. It's just what your model is. And Craigslist is a good place to
Yeah.
figure it
And
out.
along the way, so the last year, how has that progressed for you in terms of finding clients and figuring out who is the best person or the best, companies to work with?
Definitely. Over time, I'd say we still predominantly do referrals. An excellent source for me was to get on
Yeah.
Yelp for businesses, and they definitely bother you to advertise. But I did no advertising. I just created a page and asked my 5 clients to write reviews, and they did. And from there, it was like I had good reviews and people were contacting me, and I could really vet, who was a good fit and who wasn't. So I think as far as like good fits with clients, it comes down to personality, whether you like it or not. If you're compatible on a personality level, then it's going to be a great working
Yeah.
relationship. For a high trust profession like bookkeeping, where I'm in people's finances and looking at their bank accounts, if the trust is not there and just the natural curiosity about one another in like a friendly manner, then the relationship usually
Yeah.
dissolves very fast. So I try to make sure that the people are just friendly people because I'm friendly. And it's like, if you're friendly and you're fairly easygoing, even if you get anxious about your numbers and you need things, if you have reasonable expectations, I can work with that. Like a good example of this is I had a client and she was an attorney, and she just didn't feel very trusting of me and of what I did. And I would go into office and she would like look over my shoulder and she would tinker with my work and then say it was me. And what some people don't know is there's something called an audit log in QuickBooks. So I can see who made changes. So I would look and I'm like, this wasn't me. So for me, it was like, the respect wasn't there, the trust wasn't there. So it wasn't a relationship that was going to work. And I was like, if I just find people that simply trust and are kind, then it's going to be a very easy working relationship, and they're going to appreciate what I do, and I'm going to appreciate them for responding to my
Yes.
emails, which is pretty much all that I ask. So yeah, it's really just been trial and error, and we're trying to niche now a bit, and we love consultants of all walks and service-based businesses because we're a service-based business. We're very familiar with it, and we work with a lot of real estate agents, and we really like working with them as well. So we're just trying to at this point focus and hone in on like certain businesses so that we don't have to learn so many different types of chart of accounts, which is like the back end of like where you account for your
Yeah.
transactions. And that's been
Yeah,
working
it makes
well
sense
for
from an
us. Yeah.
operational perspective of having the ease of taking on more clients, and you
Yeah.
can manage more. And then one thing also, you mentioned we. So who is this team and who is involved in the business?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely a we. And I feel so lucky to have the amazing and supportive team I have. I stumbled upon my first team member, Cassie, just out of luck. Her mom and I were friends from apparel design school. And outside of school, I was working for her around 8 years ago. I was doing work for her. And just last year, I finally got up to their summer house and we were hanging out at their pool. And her daughter was like, I need a job when I go back to school in LA. And I was like, you are really analytical. You're really detail oriented and focused. You'd be a great fit. Come, consider working with me. And it's been a great fit. And she's absolutely excellent. And as far as expanding, I just put an ad on Indeed, and it was really overwhelming because we're remote. So everybody, I didn't realize, like, I set the parameters to California, but like I got like over 100 applications in
Yeah,
half
it's
an
nuts.
hour from out of state. And like, I thought, minimum wage in California, but it's like out of state, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy. But I had one request, and that was that people complete like voice call
Yeah.
interview, a phone interview, and only two
Oh,
people did
wow.
it. So I was like, okay, 2 out of 100. And one of those people just happened to be Sasha. And Sasha's just so amazing. She's really well thought and like cares really passionately for the work. And I'm really lucky because I'm really a straightforward and blunt person. And I have these two women who are very kind and they consider all sides and different perspectives. And they really help me with client communication because I can be a very curt person. Yeah. And then I just kept,
Yeah.
the Indeed applications and I looked through and I'm a stickler for spelling and, grammar. So I noticed there were a lot of errors and then I only had about 5 resumes after I reviewed everyone. And from there, I found my third person, Hillary, and she just joined us in January, and she's been great. So really, it's as an entrepreneur, being able to let go of things
Yes.
and let go of control, and know that it's not going to be a clone of what you do. It's not going to be perfect in your eyes, but close to good enough is always good enough because you can review and you can learn to delegate and just always be nice to them
Yeah,
because you want them to
exactly. You
stay.
want the long-term relationship. It's so much easier.
You do. Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
been
easier
great.
for just mentally easier than also like from just the operational perspective. Like it's just annoying and not great to have that turnover. And how did you know like
Yes.
when you wanted more people and when to bring more people on and that type of thing? Because it's not necessarily straightforward. Obviously, like oh yeah, now you hire someone else. Like how did you know?
Yeah, I think what really helped me in everything and why I'm able to, you know, run this business in the way that I do is because I'm always reading. So I am never not reading. I am never not thinking about what's next and what I want to learn. So I was just on Google, just hacking every single site for like their free
Yes.
downloads, like hiring staff, hiring employees, hiring contractors. I read through every single thing possible and really for my field. So Intuit has a lot of resources for accountants and bookkeepers and CPAs. So I was reading, Carbon, there's like a task management for accountants. I was reading articles and I was compiling, what I needed to do. And I was attending webinars and hiring staff and, just really listening to people who had done it. And I knew that it is much easier to bring somebody on before you have too much work than when you have too much work and you're stressed and you're trying to train somebody and get the
Yes.
work to them quickly. So for me, it was a matter of cutting my pay significantly, living really, really trim for a while, and just paying people to learn what before we were busy. And it was a bit counterintuitive because I definitely wanted to have more profit, but I was in a good place where I wasn't too busy to train. Like now with Hillary, it's been hard to train her
Yeah.
because I'm so busy. So I'm just like, read this article, and I have the team kind of help out and train her. But it's much easier, I think, to bring people on before you're busy. I recommend it.
Yeah, and that's incredible foresight to know that, and it comes from like you mentioned the reading and everything. I imagine when you are like a voracious learner, a voracious reader, you pick up on things that will be so helpful moving forward that you just never would have thought about, right? And it seems like that because that really
Yeah.
is like some incredible foresight to be like, oh yeah, well, if you're busy, then it's so much harder to bring someone on because then you have to train them. Like you're doing multiple jobs, so
Yeah.
that's difficult
Yeah.
and yeah, I imagine that just has to be a very difficult and tough thing to do. I wonder what I thought about too when you were talking about this was how much do you put into like in terms of the onboarding process, having like videos or other things that you can replicate for people that come on later, or how much of it is just like you said, like giving an article or something to read? Like, how do you handle that?
Definitely. So we have like a task management software
Oh
called
yeah.
Asana. That's amazing. And I am the template queen. So I draft templates, templates, templates. So I have an onboarding template for new staff and it's got articles, it has attachments to different webinars, all sorts of resources. So first, I interview them and I give them
Okay.
a few personality tests because I'm type AA, so I'm really a difficult person at times. So it's really helpful to know that somebody's going to be able to work with me and not take offense to the fact that I'm really straight and direct, and it's nothing to you. It's just that I'm busy. I'm going to give you the
Right.
information and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And so first it's, personality, and I'll interview them. Everybody's remote, so I'll meet them on Zoom. We'll talk. And then I talk to the team about the new person a bit and like what I think they could do and see my team's feedback, because we work as a collaborative and we all are equal. Nobody is above anybody in any way. So I want everybody to get along, and I want everybody to be able to work with each other. So, sometimes they'll be like, ask them this question, see if they have experience with this part of Excel. And I wouldn't think of that. And from there, we just try it out. So I set up an engagement and it's just a trial basis, 5 hours a week, and just really kind of try them out and feel them out, and they can feel me out and feel the company out and see if they like working with us and if it's a good fit. And we recently had somebody where we tried it out and she wasn't really clear of what she wanted, and it was just not a good fit. And she was like, I love working with you guys, but this isn't the best fit for me. And I
Yeah.
was like, great, I'm happy that we figured it out early. So sometimes it's just a matter of trying it out, but I would say make sure that they have a personality that's compatible with your
Yeah, and
personality.
one thing you mentioned there too, with the remote team and wanting to work remote with clients and everything. Can you explain that dynamic and why you wanted to have that remote environment and how challenging that can be?
Definitely. So for me, like, it was coming to a point last year. I had, my five clients, and I was going on site, and it's very challenging when you have multiple clients and you're on site, and then another client needs something and you're not able to address it. And occasionally you run into like something that's urgent, and it with finance, there's not too many things that are urgent, but occasionally there's something that's urgent and you can't get to it because you're
Right.
with another client. And I just realized, that the time spent commuting and the time spent going to each client's office, this would be much more efficient if we ran it remote. And then, you're able to shift as needed in the day and plan your day. So you plan, this client on Monday, that client on Tuesday, and another client on Wednesday. And if needed, you could work on your Wednesday client on Monday, and you're not going to run into a snag where you don't have something that you need. It's an office, vice versa. So really it's for efficiency. And I really appreciate the fact that being remote, you have to be efficient. Like if you're not efficient and you're remote, your business will just crumble. So it's really worked out well to just kind of remove that time spent on the road and enable us to shift gears and focus on different clients as needed.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit there too with managing your time and the day. I'm wondering more about that. I love the details, like how you structure your day, how you structure your week, how many hours you're working. Obviously, you said a mother as well. So, like, how does the time management piece play in this?
Yeah, so I wake up early. I tell everyone who works with me like the first thing you should do is frame your day. So, make some tea, get settled, and then frame your day. So, what that looks like is I review my Google Calendar, I look at my tasks in Asana, I check emails, and I make sure that what I have set to do, their top priority. And if there's something else that needs to be added, I make sure that I can accommodate it. A big trap that we fall into as entrepreneurs is saying yes. Yes, I'll do it right away, or yes, I'll get to it. And I did that so much when I was starting out, and it was so stressful because I was up till midnight trying to do something when I could have just said, you asked me last minute, please give me a week. So I learned to, really set up really positive boundaries and make sure that what I'm working on day to day is what I intended to work on in that day. And I only take calls by appointment. So I don't answer my phone. My staff, they'll text me or email me and I'll get back to them. But I make sure that, I'm focusing on the day and I don't just try to squeeze things in because usually you're pushing something else out that is probably important as well.
Right.
So that's a good thing. And recently with the business, we've implemented onboarding times, which is we onboard new clients at certain times of the month. And then we
Ooh.
take another part of the month to actually get settled into our new workflow. And that's worked out really well for us.
How often is that throughout the month?
Yeah, so we do 2 weeks onboarding and we'll decide how that is. So if it's the 1st through the 15th, we onboard new clients during those dates only. And then the 16th through the 31st is getting settled in new work and scheduling appointments with potential clients for the following month. And that's worked out really well because with the ups and downs of business, your workflow is consistently changing and clients are constantly, coming in. I have clients who constantly say they want to start doing their own bookkeeping. So I might train them and then they're going to start doing it themselves. So the workload is going to crescendo and fall and there's total ebbs and flows. So just figuring out, settling into a workflow has helped us because it's really stressful when you just say yes, 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 and then you have too much work and you can't get it done and you can't meet your expectations from clients. So that's worked well for us.
When did you implement that, and how did you even think of that type of strategy?
Oh, yeah. I just implemented it last month. How did I
Oh,
think of it? I don't know if I can remember. It was either speaking with somebody about it, like at a networking luncheon or at my BNI, and somebody was talking about efficient ways to run a business. But it was something that I heard somewhere and I wrote it down in my notes on my phone. And I was like, I'm going to try it. I think I was speaking with a massage therapist and she was mentioning something about workflow. I can't
yeah.
remember, but it clicked and I was like, that makes so much sense. And
Yeah, it does.
I
That's why
ran it
I'm
by I
curious.
ran it by my staff and they were like, yeah, that sounds great because we are so stressed sometimes because we get just a flux of clients and it's like, what do you do? Like, how do we manage this workflow? And it was just a stressful month to like a really quiet month, a stressful month to a really quiet month. So it clicked and I was like, yes, I'm doing that. I'm implementing it right away. And the
Yes,
next day it was like we had something written up for it. So
that's awesome.
yeah, I heard it somewhere through the grapevine.
And that's awesome about running your own business. You just say, you hear that and you just do it. You just implement
Yeah.
it. You don't have to wait. You're just like, all right, well, this is going
Yeah.
to help us. So let's make this happen. And great.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a person, I'm like, don't wait, just like try it out. Like the next day you can change something and just change it and see if it works. And if it doesn't, change it back the
Yeah,
following day.
exactly. You have the ability to change your mind. It's a right. You can
Exactly.
do that. It's okay.
Exactly.
And what other, I mean, you've kind of mentioned a few challenges, but what other challenges have you faced in business the last year or two you've been growing it?
Definitely. Growth has been slow. So with the model that I have, I, want to work with people that are easygoing and business owners and entrepreneurs, they're not always that way. So
Very true.
I'd say the challenge for us is the fact that we don't have everyone on board as new clients. We talk with probably 10 to 20 people a month, and maybe two of those will convert to clients. Maybe, maybe sometimes we don't have new clients in a given month. And that's okay with the model that I work from. I really want quality clients over quantity.
Yeah.
So it's just been slower to grow. I was thinking about that the other day. Like we could easily have 100 clients, but our stress level, our work level, our quality of life would be spread thin just to have the numbers. So that's not been a goal. And I think that's also a struggle because it's like finding those business owners where it's like they're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for them and making sure that it's a good relationship. I'd say efficiency was a challenge at first because tracking work when you have multiple clients, it can often slip through the cracks
Yeah.
and you forget things. And using Asana has just been a lifesaver for everyone because we have it on our phones, we have it on our computers. And if, we get something, we can forward it from email to Asana. We can just create a quick task and that makes us accountable to make sure that we follow up. So that's been great. Just keeping everything in Asana, in the cloud, tracking passwords in the cloud, and just being mindful that it's our job to be organized. So we need to stay
Yeah.
organized.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And as you move
Yeah.
forward with the company, so, what's the vision moving forward? And, what are some of those next steps that you'll be taking to make that happen?
Yeah. So the vision moving forward is to just keep growing, and slow and steady to me always wins the race. So, the slow and steady growth has just worked out well for me and for everyone because we all can adjust. So by the end of the year, I'd say we'd like to have closer to 100
Okay.
clients and have a really efficient workflow. I'm thinking maybe bringing on one more person because we're a team of 4 now, maybe being a team of 5, and just growing mindfully. I really like to be cognizant of the fact that it's really important to have hobbies outside of work and have time for things that you enjoy doing outside of work, and not let the desire for growth consume the fact that I need downtime and my staff needs downtime. So just slow growth for the next 10 years
Yeah.
and then maybe sell the business.
Yeah, and it's so like obviously there's so many different perspectives, and that's why I love interviewing so many different entrepreneurs. And like the clients you want to work with, you're being patient in that, you're okay with the slow growth, but it's like saves you so many headaches. And in terms of growing a
Yeah,
business and even having a business in the first place, like most of the time people do it because they want the freedom and flexibility and to do what they want and work with who they want. So it's like we get wrapped up, it seems like, in this growth phase of like at all costs. And but for what? What's the point? What is the
exactly.
point? So I love that. I love hearing that from you, and it's definitely reassuring as I'm trying to do some of the things I'm doing as well. And like, yeah, just patience and keep doing what you want, and you don't have to sacrifice.
Mhm,
Think of long term what you want to be doing, and
mhm.
that's something that's super important. And you mentioned kind of stepping away, like taking time off, and what does that look like for you in terms of when you kind of take time away, and how you know when it is time to kind of take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked this a lot. Like people are like, "You're an entrepreneur, you run your own business. Do you never have time for yourself?" And I'm like, "No, I actually always have time for myself." I put it on the calendar. So I calendar time to go to archery. I calendar time to go to the gym. I calendar time to take classes at community college because those are the things that enable us to go back to work and feel inspired and feel motivated to do well. And as far as a vacation, I took time away last November, and I took my daughter for 2 weeks. We went to Europe and visited my best friend over in Germany, and went to Paris, and we went to Switzerland, and it was great. And pretty much I'm a huge planner, and I planned ahead
Yes.
and I figured out what things were going to look like. And I let clients know in advance that I was going to be away, and that, they could contact our team, and I prepped the team. This is what you should answer. This is what you should let them know that I'll respond to when I'm back. And it was so smooth. I deleted my work email when I landed in Europe. I deleted my work email and I was off.
Wow.
And it was phenomenal because I set it up. The expectation was I was going to be gone. November is a really quiet month in general for bookkeepers, not for CPAs. And so it was a really good time to go. And I'm so happy I deleted the work email because I would have felt inclined to check it, and I needed to recharge. And from there, when I came back, I felt so inspired. I actually kept a notebook and was like writing ideas for the business. So when I got back, I could like implement them. And I like thought of all the clients we had, and I thought, how they fit into the model. And from there, it was just a really good refresher. And actually, April 1st, we're closing for a whole week, and I'm going to go to Hawaii, and I'm going to meet Sasha. I've never met her, and she's originally from Honolulu, and we're going to meet and hang out. And, just taking that time to just disconnect and let everyone know you're going to disconnect, and you come back so recharged and way more helpful to your clients than if you're spread thin and stressed.
Yes. And I like that you schedule it in because I think that's important. Otherwise, it can just keep slipping and slipping and slipping, and you'll
Yeah.
never actually do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, my calendar, it's crazy in all these colors and it's just different things that I do. So whether it's volunteering at my daughter's school or, going to the gym, I make sure I put it on my calendar. So I'm mindful, this is what I'm going to be doing right now. And, scheduling in work. I've recently started co-working actually, and I'm headed to do that this afternoon with a friend. He's a CPA, and it's been really great. We go to a cafe and we get a little bit of chit chat, and we get to, just be out and work together. And that's been really great as well. So
Yeah, I will definitely vouch for the co-working. So I'm lucky to have a best friend who has a company, and so we're always, there's always things to work on and things to do. And actually, other friends of mine as well. One of them has another company, and we'll do that same thing. You go to a coffee shop, go for 3, 4,
yeah,
whatever hours, and you can
yeah,
chat in
yeah,
between. And like, if you get tired for a second, you're like, "Hey, how's the work going? What's going on?" And then you come
yeah,
back to it, but you're still working. You're still getting things done. It feels like, am I really working? Like, but things are getting done, and you're just hanging out with your friend. It's like amazing life hack.
yeah. No, I can't believe how efficient it's been. And it's so exciting
Yes.
to like go and work with each other, because especially when you're an entrepreneur and you're a solopreneur working for yourself in your home, my team, we're all remote, so we never see each other. It's kind of lonely.
Yes.
And whether you like it or not, it's great to have somebody where you can just socialize a
Yes.
bit.
I will highly suggest that to people, especially solo entrepreneurs. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
find the person, just like do a work session. And yeah, you can have a little
Mhm.
chit chat and also get things done,
Yeah.
obviously. And you never know what ideas would come from that too. I've had some ideas pop up through just like you're working on something and you think of it and you can get like feedback right away, just quickly saying, "Hey, have you ever thought about this?" And then boom, talk for a little bit, then back to work. And they have an idea and they bring it
Yeah.
up. And it's just, if it's the right person, it works out well. You may have to, sometimes people are maybe too chatty, but
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I'm guilty of that at times too. But find that right person is important. But in terms of like, obviously you have the workflow and all that you've done
Mhm.
throughout this last like year growing the business. Like, what are some other specific books or podcasts or audiobooks or conferences or anything that's kind of helped you along your entrepreneurial journey here?
So Intuit hosts QuickBooks Connect every year, and I was lucky to be able to go to that for the first time last year, and it was amazing. So, finding a conference with like-minded individuals that are doing what you're doing, like what Intuit and QuickBooks is moving towards is towards, remote practices all in the cloud. And so I met all these people that do what I do, they work in the cloud. And actually, surprisingly enough, so many people were inspired by my model that people were asking to work for me and asking to talk with me, because it's like I had implemented everything that they wanted to. And, it was just from a decision of I'm just going to try this out and do it. And that was just really inspirational, because I met some people that had been running remote practices. They had 100 clients. They have been doing it for years. They've hired people. They
Yep.
fired people. These are their tips. And that's just, really helpful when you're growing, to meet people that are like minded and ping pong ideas and figure out what works. And, somebody might be like, hey, maybe you shouldn't say it like this because the person will interpret it this way. And you're like, oh, I never
Yeah.
thought of that. So that's phenomenal. But as far as books, I'm all into books that offer perspective and drive curiosity for you to think about the bigger
Yeah.
picture. So for me, that's totally self-help. Like I love the
Same here.
genre of
Yeah.
self-help. And, when you are in balance as a entrepreneur, then things fall into place. And if they don't, you can handle it effectively without having a meltdown. So that's just been really great to read books on efficiency. So for me, I like The 7 Habits of Highly
Yeah.
Effective People by Stephen Covey. I like The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. It's really inspirational. It's like telling you, like, if you just focus on one thing, you can grow 300% because you're focusing. And my favorite, which I listen to on a monthly basis, is Manifest Now by Adil Ahmed. And it's about kind of the power of your thoughts. And, you know, when you think about somebody and then they call all of a sudden, that coincidental way that life works, and really just opening doors for yourself. And I have all these books under my bed as physical copies, and I have them as audiobooks. So I'm always opening them up for inspiration. Right now, I recently started Digital Minimalism. It's really interesting because I've been looking at how much time I've spent on social media, and I've decided to stop being on social media and really make it like only for business. I'm on social media. It's like a task
Yeah.
of the business so that I have more time to read. And I always find that, reading about positive ways to improve the business works. I tried some books that were like kind of authoritarian, and they stressed me out because it was like, you're doing things wrong and you should do this, and just made me extremely
Yeah.
anxious. So I really like positive books that really help you see all perspectives. There's also this one I listened to in Europe. It's called The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And that one was phenomenal because it gives you different personality characteristics, and it helped me understand
Yeah.
my staff and how they respond to feedback and criticism and the best way to communicate with them. So that was a really good book as well. So there's lots of
Awesome.
books.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many out there, right? You just got to
Yeah,
get started
so
and like find
many.
something. I
Yeah,
mean, I have,
yeah,
yeah, bookshelf full
yeah,
of them, and then an audible account that has many, many books in there. And then,
yeah.
yeah, it's like, there's just so many, they're so good. And I think I've kind of talked with, yeah, my best friend about this as well. It's like, even the books, even if you don't take something specific, it's like being in the mindset and like reading, like puts you in like a state of mind that you're like
Yes.
learning, you're open to things, and you just think of ideas. Even like the same book again, like reading it or listening to it again, or like just a book that may not be super tactical, but it gets you ideas and gets you thinking and just puts you in that mindset of like growth and the mindset of like what ideas can I think of. And I think that's important as well.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. And I'd say, being successful really, it starts with the mindset, and it starts with, you know, the way that people interpret your persona and who you are. Like, as a consultant, people want to work with you because they like you, because they trust you. So, if you're able to work on yourself, then you can be your best self, whatever that looks like to you. And that's just been so positive for me, especially with my staff, because like I value them so highly and they support me and we support each other. It's just always being flexible and always being open to
Yeah.
growth, and really having a growth mindset and not being
Yeah,
fixed about
I
things.
100% agree. And
Hmm.
one of the things I wanted to just kind of shifting gears a little bit here, and I didn't really talk about much, but in terms of
Hmm.
someone like a business owner, looking to get a bookkeeper, hire a bookkeeper, like, or that whole process, what are some things they should know, things they should look for? Like, I realize I didn't ask that yet. I'm kind of curious about that as well.
Oh yeah, that's fine. I always recommend to like figure out what your priorities are. So if you're thinking about getting a bookkeeper, it's important to consider, what matters for you, and kind of expand outwards from that. So I always say start from like a bubble map, which they're usually used for like
Yeah.
describing adjectives, right? And you're at the center of that. And what are your positive attributes? What are things that you're good at? So maybe you're excellent at, sales and meeting with clients, and maybe you're excellent what you do professionally on a professional level. But when it comes down to bookkeeping and, you know, finance, it's a skill, and it's being able to sit down and focus and
Yeah.
get it done. So whatever that looks like, whether it's an Excel, whether it's just a piece of paper and you're tracking every single expense, it's the fact that you're willing to sit down and get it done, ideally on a weekly basis, but on a monthly basis works. Because what happens is, you have this luncheon with somebody and you forget, and it's, been 3 months and you have no idea what it is, and you're trying to work backwards. And then it becomes this really charged and stressful situation. And you decide, oh, I can't stand bookkeeping. And oftentimes it's not that they can't stand bookkeeping. It's that they are not disciplined enough to
Right.
do it and be consistent. And so if you think you can't afford it, you should consider, if you mess it all up, then it's going to be a lot more for a
Right.
professional to fix it. And I see this a lot where people download the software, and we work in QuickBooks Online predominantly, and they, get things linked and they just start working in it, and there's no training and there's no understanding, and they feel negatively about it. So then it's all just a big tangle. And, if you just set some intention, like, I am an organized person, but I don't feel capable right now of handling the bookkeeping. money's tight, but maybe I'll start out with some training and see if I can manage this. And, an honest professional will tell you, I think you can do this. I think you have the personality. That's always what I indicate in training immediately. It's like, you have the personality to do this, but I really don't think you should be doing this.
Right. What can you
Let's
do?
figure out some options. And yeah, so really it's just being able to sit and be a little bit disciplined and write down expenses, track your expenses, look at your bank statements, review it. And, maybe it's every month you get your bank statements via online statements, print them, and then just write personal business, whatever it is, you're tracking it. But the indicator really is, it's on a personal level, because I see people who can afford it and they don't want to. And I see people who can't afford it and they value it. And they're like, I can't handle this right now. I really would like to focus on growth and high level things for my business at the moment.
Yeah.
That's what's important. So
Depends is a word that is very well known in entrepreneurship. It depends. Like, what should I do? Well, it depends on on many factors. I hear that actually in business school all the time, because it's like every scenario is different. But it is nice to have some perspective, though, on at least certain cases, and it'll give you at least some idea of what to do in certain situations. But it's helpful. It's very helpful. And what is some other, if there's anything else you would say to aspiring entrepreneurs or business owners, any other advice that you kind of picked up from, running your business the last year plus here?
Definitely. I'd say the best thing for me is having a vent buddy.
Ooh.
So I have a fellow entrepreneur, and on a weekly basis, we have a call and we talk about the challenges that we're facing as young women of color who own small businesses. And we just literally hop on a call and we're like, man, I messed up this week. Like, I didn't get payroll done in time, or, man, like my staff is really haggling me about having more of a flexible schedule and I really need them to be reliable. Like, we vent to one another about our challenges. And that really helps us not feel alone and isolated in what we're doing and give us perspective. And then we can think about things and kind of implement changes. Like, I had a call this week with my friend, and she was trying to implement some changes with her staff and the way she pays them. And she has the tendency to overshare. And so she told me her spiel, and I was like, that's way too much. Refine it. Like, leave this out. There's no need to say this. Like, if you go here, you're going to open yourself up to liabilities. Like, we have totally different perspectives. She owns a house cleaning business. I have a bookkeeping firm. Like, we're totally different, but there's so many similarities that it helps us really figure out what we want to do and where we want to change, and just feel like, relieved to just be able to share.
I mean, at the end of the
struggles.
day, we're still humans, right? Like, entrepreneur or not, we all have certain needs. We all, can be lonely. It can be such a challenge to run a business, and having that sense of community is incredibly important. We actually had an event at USC a couple weeks ago. It's part of my language, but it's called Fuck Up Nights. And basically their share their biggest fuck ups and challenges that they've had to deal with. And so we had a panel on there, and it was everyone was raving afterwards. It's so nice to have this space AA for entrepreneurs. And so it's a nice thing to have that. It's a nice thing to have that type of community.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I think too often it's you ask friends, how's business?
Wonderful.
Great. Everything's great. But it's yeah, wonderful. How's no, I'm stressed out. I'm trying to pay, the quarterly tax payment. It's really high. I overstated income, whatever it is, you want to be able to acknowledge your mistakes. And I think that's a really big thing too, to be able to acknowledge your mistakes and listen from your mistakes, because there's always a lesson tucked in those mistakes. And if you can figure it out after a second or third try, because usually the first try as an entrepreneur doesn't always happen, then you're good. You're solid. You undercharge. We had a lot of undercharging last year, and it was wow, we really need to refine our pricing. And now it's we finally gotten to a place where we're profitable and it's not costly on our end. So learn from those mistakes and be open to new ideas.
Yeah, that's great. And Serah, where can people go to learn more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, so we love for people to check us out on our website, booksinharmony.com. And you could feel free to email us from the website. You could email us at info@booksinharmony.com, and we'd be happy to just chat with you, see what we do. If you have a question, we can probably give you an excellent article because we have a huge database of some articles that can help you. And
Awesome.
yeah, look forward to hearing from people that have questions.
Yeah, Serah, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun and learned a lot as well from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Just Go Grind. As always, the show notes are over at justgogrind.com/podcast. And you can support the show over at patreon.com/justgogrind. And please leave a rating and review over on iTunes. It does help more people find the show. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a great day.